We recommend this product be installed by a competent gunsmith.
Modification of your firearm may nullify the warranty of the firearm's manufacturer.
No liability is expressed or implied for damage or injury which may occur from improper use or installation of this product.
You are responsible for the safe handling, legalities, and use of your firearm.
Warning: always wear safety glasses when working on firearms. Hi guys, today I'm going to walk you through the installation of the Apex Durable Striker for the FN 509 series pistols. Before we get into the installation of the Durable Striker, I want to show you how the system currently works and what we've changed about how it works to improve the overall longevity of the system. So, what you see here is a factory striker installed into a cutaway of a factory slide. Normally in this case you'd have the striker spring up here in front compressed. I don't have it in here because it would otherwise push things around. So, the way the system works, you have a little cross pin that goes through the striker spring stop that pushes out the front here. As the striker comes forward under compression, that pin hits the inside of the breech first, and that allows the firing pin to go into a free float mode right here. The spring that's normally up here keeps it retracted, but the striker holds it forward. So it gives you space to actually fire and then retract as needed. That's cool. The problem we found is that a metal-to-metal contact imparts a lot of energy from the striker into the breech, which then can damage things over time. This is part of why dry firing an empty chamber on this pistol is not a good idea. So we came up with a new idea. So what we did is a bit of a revolutionary idea here, nothing crazy, but hey, it's what we do. We came up with a buffer system. So now what you're going to do is you're going to install, with a new striker that accommodates the buffer, you install this buffer into the slide that's polymer, and when the cross pin on the striker impacts the buffer, that buffer absorbs the energy so it doesn't damage the slide or the striker, and that makes it last a ton longer. We've been able, in our certification process, we have 4 strikers that have gone each 250,000 dry fires on an empty chamber, and then were fired multiple thousand rounds after that. So we've done over 1 million dry fires on this design. Everything has worked exactly as we planned. So we're certifying the Durable Striker system, our striker and our buffer together, for 125,000 dry strikes on an empty chamber. That is, no one else can offer that. We couldn't offer that with our heavy-duty striker, but that's why we came up with a better version to really crank up the reliability and durability of what's here. Now that you know that, let's go ahead and install it. This kit includes the Apex Durable Striker for the FN 509 series pistols, the Durable Striker buffer, and a 6mm by 50mm screw to use as a buffer removal tool if needed. Tools needed for this installation are a 3/32 inch pin punch and a 1/16 inch pin punch. I also have shown here the 6mm diameter screw that comes with the striker and buffer system. This is used for removing the buffer from the slide if you need to. We'll get to that later in the video. First thing we need to do to install the Apex Durable Striker is remove the factory striker or whatever striker you have in place currently. So first thing we're going to do, take a pin punch back here to the little cap on the back that goes from the mainspring in to engage the back of the slide. Put a pin punch in here, compress that guy down a little bit against spring force, hold it, and then the back plate slides right out of the way. From here, I'm going to put my finger on the end, pull my punch out, and I'm going to relieve tension gently on the striker spring to get it out of the way. From here, I can go ahead and pull the spring straight out of here. Now, what I recommend doing is pressing forward slightly on the striker toe, press the striker block in, and then release the striker to pull it all the way out if you can. Now, in this case, I pull it back as far as the little back edge hitting the back of the slide, then the striker block can come out and the spring goes along with. Now the striker itself comes out. Now, do not forget to remove this guy. Striker return spring. The striker return spring has to be removed anytime you take the striker assembly apart. The reason for this is to make sure that you don't forget that it's in there or you get it all sideways. So anytime the extractor components come out of the slide, this guy has to come out too, just to make sure it goes back together right. So we'll set this aside, we'll prep the striker and the slide for installation, and we'll go from there. So let's say you want to remove the buffer from the slide to put the factory striker back in or whatever other reason. So we include this 6mm screw. You can go to the hardware store and buy this. This is not a special screw by any means. We didn't make this on our Swiss or anything else that's special. I literally bought these online because they were cheap and that's all we needed. So what you need to do to remove the buffer. This screw is long enough to go all the way in to the buffer. Kind of find the center manually. And all you have to do is push in and turn about a full rotation to capture that bushing. Now, you should be able to hold on tight and just gently wiggle that out and pull it out. In this case, it is coming right out for me. But I want to show you the other method. Once you get it bit in a good turn, go into your vise, tighten the vise on the screw, and you can crank that thing down. It's just a screw, who cares, right? So from here, I would then pull on the slide, and I would also rotate clockwise as if I'm screwing the buffer on to the screw. As I pull, and then from here, I can get that out of there. So the idea is to be able to remove that buffer. If you need to remove it for any reason, if you want to clean the gun, maintain it, whatever else, that comes out, and then you can just, well, might have to grab it with a pair of pliers, but unscrew that. We offer spare bushings. All you gotta do is call customer service and we'll supply you with one, not a problem. But that's the method, real straightforward. From there, clean the channel out, get it all prepped, put it all back together, and you're good to go. Here I have the factory striker. We need to harvest the two of the components out of the striker to use. We're gonna take the striker spring pin and striker spring stop out. So we're gonna just push this guy out with a pin punch, turn this guy on its back, tap it out. Here's the two components. Now your factory striker might look different than this. It might have a solid body with little protrusions, same setup. Pop the pin and top hat out of there. We're going to use them in the Apex striker. So I've got the cutaway slide here to show you the process, and I have a real slide to put it in just so you can see what's going on. You're going to take the Apex buffer, and it is unidirectional. It does not matter which way it goes. I'm going to use the factory striker as an installation tool. So I'm going to set it right on the front of that striker, and I'm basically going to slide it in from the back of the striker channel, and I'm going to push it all the way forward until it goes all the way in and stops in the slide. Now, your firing pin tip on the factory will not protrude into the breech. That's normal with the buffer in. You cannot use a factory striker or any other striker that matches factory lengths. Once that's in, remove the striker. Then you're going to take the Apex striker and still unassembled without the components in it. Drive that guy all the way in, just with your thumb, with your finger. Push it in and make sure that when it's pushed against its stop, that the firing pin tip protrudes into the breech, like you can see here. That's critical. If it doesn't, that means your little buffer isn't far enough in, and that could be an issue. So you have to take a look, see what's going on with that, but make sure that's going there. And then it'll pull right back out. So from here, we'll go ahead and pull the striker out, reassemble it, and then fully install it. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this on the live slide as well. So I'll take this factory striker and the buffer, put it in the back of the slide, and I'm just gonna go ahead and slide it in here. Now be mindful, it's a very short part front to back, and so it wants to get sideways a little bit as you go, so be careful. Push it in gently. I'm going to push this guy all the way to the end. Now it stops. My firing pin tip is not going through like I expected. Factory striker is now removed because it was the installation tool. I'm taking the Apex striker. I'm going to push this guy all the way in and double check that if I push it against the stop, aha, I've got firing pin tip into the breech, and now I'm right where I need to be. So from here, we're going to go ahead and remove the striker, and we'll go ahead and assemble it with the factory components and reassemble the whole slide. First thing we need to do is install the striker spring stop and striker spring pin, stop pin. What I'll do is I'll rotate this guy up, and you'll see a pair of holes in the side of this little guy here. They have to align with the hole in the striker. However, I've almost always found that if I rotate about 45 degrees off axis and drop it in, it almost always aligns with the hole, and man, there it is. Just like the last video we did, it just dropped right in. So that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and put the pin in, capture that guy, and then all I'm going to do is just hold my finger across the back and just make sure it articulates forward and back in here. What I can also do is holding my finger on the bottom so it doesn't fall out, I'll take the striker spring, push it in, and make sure that guy moves forward like it's supposed to. If I hold tension on it, roll it sideways, you can see that's exactly where it needs to be. That's ready to use. So I'll go ahead and leave the striker spring on here like this to kind of hold tension on everything. From here, I'll take my slide. I'm going to go ahead and take the striker return spring, put it on the end of the striker, and I'm going to rotate the slide to match the striker because I got this pin held in place. Gravity's going to let it fall right out, so I'm going to rotate this guy toward you guys. Put this all the way into the slide. Make sure I engage the back of the slide. Push it all the way in at least until the little toe at the bottom captures in the slide. Now, from here I need to work on putting the striker block and spring back in. Now we've got this, I'm going to get a better close-up and show you how that part goes next. Next, we need to put the striker block and spring in. Now, this is the point where customers have had the most issues where they've called us and told us, hey, this thing's in backwards, what do I do? Let's make sure we know how to put it in properly. The proper orientation for the striker block itself is the pocket on the outside where the spring goes to the outside of the slide. So if I have my slide facing this direction, that spring goes, oops, let go of it, goes to the outside of the slide. So basically I can drop the spring into the channel if I want to, like this, and I can use the striker block to capture it and push it into position. Now, from here it will not go all the way down. That's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it back so you can see better here. There's a band on the back of the striker. This is the contact band or the bearing surface for the striker to the channel. We're going to move the striker back until the back line lines up with the back of the slide. From here, that striker block will push right down into place against spring force. I'm going to push the striker back in. Be mindful of rotation. It wants to rotate off axis. Push that guy in, and now with the striker in place, the striker block gets held in as well. So now that that's there, all we have to do is recompress the spring and put the cap back on. We'll do that next. With the assembly ready to put back together, all I need to do is compress the striker forward by pressing the striker block in, compress the spring, and put the back plate on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the slide like so. I'm going to use my finger and press the striker down. Now at this point I'm past the striker block, which is fine. I can press the striker block in and it'll pop forward even more, take a little tension off. But I need to make sure that the little cap on the end of the striker spring is inside the back of the slide, right inside this line. Once it's there, I can take the back plate, I can slide it into position, capture that guy, and gently remove my finger so you can see it's now captured here. And then I'm just going to push in. That positive click tells you it's in place. From here, we'll do a quick function check, and then we're done. Once the striker is installed and the back plate is reinstalled, we're going to go ahead and do a function check. So first things first. Right now my striker is sitting in front of the block, so it's not going to capture. If I press forward, it should protrude the firing pin into the breech face right there, which it does. If I release, take the striker block up, it should pop back. And it did. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull the striker back until the striker block clicks, which now it's there. Now it's locked in place. If I push forward, no matter how much force I put on here, the striker block is stopping the striker from moving forward, which means the striker is not protruding into the breech, which means it's not going to fire. This means the drop safety is still active as it needs to be. From here, I'm going to press the striker block in, and I'll press the striker forward just to make sure, and I'll watch the breech and make sure that guy protrudes in. It's all good. It's protruding in, it's retracting with the spring force. I let go, and we're all set. Remember, when the gun is in battery and the slide is on the frame and the sear is in the up, ready to fire position, the striker is actually brought back to about here by the system at rest. So it holds here, and then the sear comes back, striker block gets picked up. So at this point where it's at now, I just dropped it against the striker block, which I don't recommend doing. It's not going to go forward because it can't fire because the striker block is in the way. This is properly set up, proper function. What I recommend before you go put it back on the slide, make your life easier, press the striker block in, let the striker free float in its forward position up here before you put it back on the frame. Makes it a little easier when you put it on. If you're locked behind the striker block, it tends to be a little bit goofy on the trigger sometimes when you put the slide back on for the first time. So to get that guy back on, lubricate it, put it together, and you're ready to go test fire. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns during the installation process, contact our customer service.